Welcome back, super fans, to another exciting episode of How to Build the Legendary Kit from Knight Rider by Fanhome. Today we're tackling stages 15 through 18, so enough talking about it. Let's head over to the build station and get into it. All right, here we are back again, and this month we have an exciting freebie, license plate featuring Knight. It's a little undersized from a real license plate, but it is metal and looks pretty good, so we'll just set that off to the side. We have everything set up in this issue where we will be affixing the electronic control unit to the front right wheel arch. We'll place the wheel arch into the chassis and the front axle, and we will affix the shock absorber as we do so. Up first is step number 1, and we're going to take the right front arch assembly from the last issue, and we are going to place the right front shock absorber top mount over the 3 holes in the upper part of the wheel arch. And we'll be using GM screws to secure these pieces. As always, we'll be using our 3-in-1 lubricant. Whenever attaching metal pieces or screwing into metal pieces, it helps lubricate so the screw drives right in without fear of stripping the threads or the hole. Alrighty, with that nice and tight, a little loose here. I'm having some trouble here getting the screw into the hole. Not lining up correctly. Well, let's try a different screw. Going in very well either, it feels like. While I try to fiddle with this and get this to work, this issue is covering episode 9, Trust Doesn't Rust, in which 2 petty thieves accidentally activate a discarded prototype of KITT and use the incredible vehicle to commit various crimes. Michael and KITT must deactivate Carr as soon as possible. So here we go, the first appearance of Carr in Season 1, Episode 9. Carr would go on to be KITT's nemesis throughout the series. For a bit of trivia, can anybody tell me what CAR stands for? Drop that into the comments below. Pretty frustrating. I'm going to try to thread the hole from the bottom. Hopefully that'll give us some opportunity to install it easier from the top. Always frustrating when the components don't line up correctly. It's interesting bit of trivia. Carr was voiced by Peter Cullen. You may know the famous voice actor as the voice of Optimus Prime in Transformers movies and the cartoon series. Right, next up, we're going to turn the assembly over and we're going to insert the right front shock absorber rod into the center hole of the wheel arch. And we'll match the post on the stem with the notch in the wheel arch from the opposite side. And then we will fix the rod with the screw. Just check to see if it's loose or how tight it is, and maybe give this a little tightening up here. All right, next up, on the top of the wheel arch, we are going to place the electric control unit bottom. And then over this, we're going to place the electric control unit itself. And we'll hold both pieces in place and affix them with a CP screw. I want to thank you all for joining us today, and if this is your first time, please smash that like button. It really does help out the channel. Also, click subscribe and ring that bell for notifications if you're interested in seeing more videos like this. Our channel is centered around all things retro, from home arcade, retro video games, toys, you name it. Okay, next up, we're going to locate two small holes on the side of the electronic control unit. And in the bottom hole, we're going to insert the large pin of wiring terminal 2. In the upper hole, we're going to insert the larger pin of the wiring terminal 1. And in doing so, that in the other pin of the terminal is facing to the right, as you see here. And then we're going to attach one end of the electronic control unit wiring onto the tip of the terminal. These little hoses generally fit nice and snug, but in cases that they don't, a little bit of plastic or model glue works just fine to keep them there permanently. But in this case, they are fitting pretty good. So I will not be doing that. And the kit does include these tweezers, which you can use to help slide these into place and get them nice and snug. All right, with that piece done, we are going to retrieve the chassis assembly from issue 13. And then we're going to position the wheel arch on the right end of the front axle. Then, before attaching the piece, we're going to place the spring on the rod and insert the rod into the right front shock absorber. And we'll note here that there's a hole on the side of the wheel arch that fits onto a small post on the right side of the chassis. Alright, with that in position, next we're going to fix the rear flange of the front right wheel arch to the chassis center section. We'll be using an EM screw, and then we're going to use another EM screw in the joint between the wheel arch and the front right chassis beam. Again, since we are going metal to metal and using things, we're going to add our 3-in-1 lubricant. If you've missed an episode of this series, feel free to jump on over to the channel page. I do have a playlist where you can check out all past stages of this build. Noticed it wasn't really coming all the way down, so I'm going to have to hold this into place before installing these EM screws. Trying to get these aligned a little difficult over the table, so I'm just checking things out here. So now with the assembly turned over, we're going to place an EM screw in the front joint of the wheel arch with the front right chassis beam. We'll also use a GM screw in the joint with the front right wheel arch to support the frame. A lot of holes in here, making sure I get the exact right one. Alrighty, there you have it. The front right wheel arch has been installed in the chassis. And lastly, we are going to place the front shock absorber on the top mount on the front of the right shock absorber. And there you have it, folks. Stage 1, or actually stage 15, is complete. So with that, let's head back over to the build station as we get things set up for stage 16. This is always a fun one. I pre-soaked the tires in hot water. That helps the tire become more pliable and expand, and it's much easier to install the hubcaps and the rims when you do that. Without it, you really have to muscle and compress that. With the once it's heated up a little, just soaking in hot water for a few minutes doesn't take much effort at all to compress that wheel, allowing you to screw in nice and easy. And that's what we'll be doing in this first part. We are going to join both parts of the hub in the middle of the tire, and with the 3 holes lined up, we're going to use 3 EM screws to affix the hub together inside the tire. Again, don't forget your trusty 3-in-1 lubricant. You will definitely want to have it on these pieces because it is going to be holding a lot of pressure with these tires, so you've got to get that screw nice and secure. The goal of stage 16 is to put together the front right wheel and affix it to the front right axle. So it should be a fairly easy build. And this issue of the kit is featuring the episode Inside Out, which is episode 10 of season 1. And in this one, Michael will pose as a getaway driver and infiltrate a team of mercenaries working for a dangerous Colonel Kincaid. Next up, we're going to retrieve the brake system assembly from issue 9, and we're going to place the brake disc assembly inside the brake caliper. And we'll pay special attention to the rectangular notch in the center hole of the disc and make sure they line up together. Once that's aligned, we'll be placing the brake assembly on the front right steering knuckles on the chassis from the last step, so that the side of the disc is facing outward. The detail in these little disc brakes is pretty amazing. should just slide in there and sit there. It'll be secured once we put the wheel itself on. So next up, we're going to affix the right front wheel onto the axle. There is a lug on it that should engage with the rectangular notch in the brake disc assembly and with the brake caliper. And because this isn't really affixed, you got to make sure you line everything up, which is kind of difficult at the awkward size of these things. Okay, now that that's in place, we're going to put the little washer in the center of the hole of the outer hub, and then we're going to secure the entire wheel assembly with an FM screw. For some reason, it doesn't seem to be going in. Wonder if our washer didn't fall in the hole properly. Just going to make sure everything's aligned here as it was supposed to. And it stuck on the wheel. That notch is in there nice and tight. Try to get this all back in place. We'll line up the wheel again. All right, with that nice and snug in there, next we are going to move to the central hubcap. We're going to place the hubcap using 5 AM screws to affix the part. I'm just testing the spin here, a little tighter than the other side. Fumble. All right, with that completed, we are on the last step of stage 16, and that is to connect the front brake line. So once we've located that, we're going to pass that through the free end. We're going to take the free end of the cable through the gap between the front right suspension upper control arm and front axle cross member, and we're going to connect it to the post on the brake caliper. Always hard to maneuver these little hoses onto the posts and in a way that keeps it on the build plate, and I don't have to maneuver it. But make sure we get it in through that control arm just the right way before I try to squeeze that on there. Again, this is where those tweezers come into really helpful. See if we can't prop this up a bit and get a decent view. I apologize for the lighting a little bit. It's always fun to try to capture all these dark black metal pieces with all the shadows and all that stuff. I have a couple lights, but clearly it doesn't light it up enough. It's always painful wrestling with these little hoses. We'll say there's a lot more detail on this part of the kit than there is on the Back to the Future DeLorean. There's certainly a lot of hoses and things you connect up to that one, but they don't go so far as to do all the brake lines and all that stuff. Most of their hoses that you connect are all within the engine itself. So going the extra mile down here on all these components certainly adds to the complexity of the build, but not, perhaps the realism, but it's likely a lot of filler, right? An excuse to give you more to do than probably is necessary, but still looks cool. always so hard to get some of these on here. Okay, I think we have it. Turn, see how gives it nice turn radius. All right, there you have it. That is the complete stage 16. So as we get the build plate ready for stage 17, we're going to assemble elements of the cooling system. So this should be a pretty short and sweet one. So let's head back over and get started. All right. First up, we are going to place one of the fan blades onto the fan motor frame. And then we're going to fix those with a DP screw. And we're going to repeat this for each of the 3 fan blades. The issue for stage 17 features episode 11 of season 1, The Final Verdict. When an old friend of Michael's is accused of murder, he must find the lone witness who can offer her an alibi, an accountant involved with some very dirty business. All right, with that complete, we are going to push the posts on the fan motor frame into the fan surround, and then we are going to attach that with 4 BP screws. It's funny, in this episode 11, Michael Knight apparently has to have an arm wrestling contest, and his opponent is actually former NFL player Tim Rosovich. But the arm wrestler was in fact a different cast member, Bob Schott. Interesting. Little behind the scenes tidbit, some of the great things you find in these issues if you're actually interested in delving deep into the behind the scenes information. It's funny, in this episode also featured KITT with the ability to generate a graphic image of a face from a verbal description, something we're just now seeing today in generative AI. Well, that's it for stage 17. So wrapping that one up and getting the build plate ready for the final stage for this week's episode, stage 18. And in stage 18, we're going to be affixing that cooling assembly and other components of the radiator to the front wheel arches. So everything's set up and ready to go. So let's head back to the build plate and get this thing wrapped up. All right, first up, we're going to grab our radiator reel panel, and it's got ridged with ridged surface facing outward, and we're going to position that over the posts on the radiator front panel, and that will just kind of slide together. And once that's done, we position the fan assembly from the prior issue onto the radiator rear panel. And then we're going to fix those together with 2 BP screws. All right, with that done, we're going to place the radiator assembly into the arms of the radiator frame. Doesn't seem to lay in there all that great. The next up, we're going to take the front radiator bars and we're going to attach them diagonally on the front of the frame so that the rings at their ends line up with the holes in the frame. And then we're going to fix each bar with 2 CP screws. Yeah, it just doesn't seem like it's in there right. But okay. In this issue, we're covering episode 12, A Plush Ride, in which the Foundation sponsors a meeting of third world leaders to fight international terrorism. But there may be a saboteur in the security team for the summit, and Michael must find out who it is. Of course, this is not fitting right, so something is wrong. Interesting connection in this episode. There is a bar that appears called the Buckaroo Club. If you're a fan of Colt Seavers, aka the Fall Guy, you might recognize that club as it is a hangout of his. Fall Guy, of course, created by Glenn A. Larson, who also created Knight Rider. Another fun fact of this episode is the first time we see Turbo Boost used in reverse. Of course, Turbo Boost being one of KITT's most famous moves, it's giving him his ability to jump. Us 80s kids loved our jumping cars. The KITT from Knight Rider, Dukes of Hazzard. I would imagine a mini Charger, 69 Charger, and these Pontiac Trans Ams were destroyed in the filming of those two series. And of course, our holes are just not lining up. No matter how much I push, they're not going to line up. Seems like there's a track here where it should fit, but it's not going in there. Fun trial and error that takes place in building these kits with their minimal instructions. Wonder if we just don't have this cooling assembly assembled incorrectly. If we need to flip one of these so that it lines up different. There's a ridge here, and the holes are positioned off. I should have noticed that. So let's flip it around. Of course, that looks a whole lot better. It was a refresher, I guess. We're going to take the front radiator bars, cross them diagonally, and attach them with CP screws. So frustrating. This has been one of our longer builds in the series so far with a couple of the issues we've had. So looking at the clock, we've got about 8 minutes before we cross the hour mark. So hopefully we can really push here and get this wrapped up before we actually cross into the 1 hour mark. That would be nice. If you've stuck around this long, I sincerely appreciate it. And hope you're finding this interesting. And if you're struggling with your own pieces, hopefully this has helped you out a little bit. All right. Now that we've attached the two radiator hoses to the top of the fan and pushed one end of the radiator hose onto the lower post, we're going to position the tabs of the side radiator frame over the posts on the front wheel arch, and then we're going to secure those together with 2 M screws. This will be our last step. And the 3 remaining hoses, we will be saving those for a future stage. Get that aligned right. Alrighty, there you have it. we have completed stage 18 and our chassis is really starting to take shape. The front end is completed from that standpoint. We've got a radiator and everything in there. So, not sure what holds next for us. Maybe some engine parts, maybe begin work on the rear chassis, but excited you were able to join us today and looking forward to the next episode. Till next time, have fun.